One of Reddit's oldest surviving relics, r/confession, was created back in November of 2008, during the lawless, unfiltered era of the early internet. What started as a digital confessional booth for the anonymous masses has quietly evolved into something darker. At face value, it's simple. Unburden your soul, share your secrets, and walk away a little lighter. Some confessions are harmless, mundane even. A teenager admits to stealing a candy bar. An exhausted employee fakes food poisoning to skip work. A spouse reveals an affair, hidden behind a throwaway account and a vague location. But scroll a little further, and the tone shifts. The air gets heavier. The posts begin to blur the line between morality and malevolence. Sometimes it's just a whisper, a chilling line buried in a sea of text. I know the woman on this missing persons poster, and I know where her remains are. No upvotes, no comments, just a single post, vanishing into the digital void like a scream in a vacuum. You freeze, finger hovering over the screen, wondering, is this real? Was this just a story, or did I just read the words of a killer confessing to the abyss? There's something deeply unsettling about the anonymity. Unlike true crime documentaries or courtroom footage, these confessions have no face, no timestamp, no consequence. Just raw, unfiltered guilt oozing through the screen. Some beg for forgiveness. Others, they just want to be heard. Some don't even seem remorseful, just relieved to finally tell someone. And that's what makes r/confessions so disturbing. It's not always the absurd or the shocking. It's the subtle, cold, matter-of-fact tone of the darkest posts. The idea that someone could unload a horrifying truth into the abyss, and then go back to their life while the rest of us scroll past, never knowing if we just brushed up against real evil. Because sometimes it's not about clearing your conscience. Sometimes it's about testing the waters, seeing if anyone notices, or if anyone cares. And maybe that's the scariest part. We've all had those moments, fighting off sleep in the dead of night, driving while your eyes begin to close, thinking you can rest them just for a second. But imagine opening them again and realizing everything has changed. For Redditor subject page 3397, that moment became a waking nightmare. I lost my child at 11 months. He suffered a fever at 3 a.m., just after I had closed my eyes for a few minutes. When I woke up, he had convulsed, and he never woke up again. This changed my life. I lived with this guilt every day. I never had any more children. He was enough. Newborns are exhausting, physically, mentally, emotionally. Sleep becomes a luxury, exhaustion your constant shadow. You push your body past its limits because you have to. The comments underneath the post tried to comfort them, like patching a hole in a dam with gauze. One user, who is a NICU nurse, wrote, "You're absolutely not at fault. Sometimes babies get really sick really fast. Even immediate action doesn't always save them. You did nothing wrong, and I hope one day you can believe that." But guilt doesn't follow logic. It sinks in like rot, quiet, slow, and irreversible. And even though she did everything she could, the silence that followed will echo forever. Have you ever been in love? Ever imagine the perfect wedding, the dress, the vows, the partner who sees you and chooses you every day? For Redditor Cheap Tennis 7592, that dream never came true. Her post is titled, "Marrying for money sucks and I do not recommend it." She writes, "Married a 40-year-old when I was 19. Started dating when I was 17. Yes, it was gross, but that's what happened. The only reason he married me was because I was hot, and the only reason I married him was because he had money. What follows is a slow unraveling of regret. 2 decades of marriage, 4 children, a life built on a transaction, not love. While she claims they've grown to care for each other, the power imbalance never faded. Every decision, every argument, every moment is weighed against the deal she made as a teenager. You will owe him," she says, "not just for the money, but for everything." The price of youth traded for stability is a debt that never ends. And the final punch lands hard. Her daughter is now only 2 years younger than she was when it all began. That's the kind of reflection that chills you to the bone, because she knows exactly how easily a life can slip away. While we're on the topic of love, imagine falling for someone with your whole heart. Now imagine that someone else, someone close to you, loved them just as deeply and never said a word. One Redditor shares a haunting story titled, "Found out my dead best friend was in love with my wife." It starts like any story of grief. A best friend gone too soon, a heart condition, a quiet funeral. In the aftermath, the OP helps pack up his friend's belongings, digging through memories in a basement, childhood photos, group shots, snapshots of a life once lived. But one box didn't belong. Inside were photos of his wife, not just recent ones, but pictures dating back before they were married, before they had even met. Group hangouts, reunions, her birthday, and letters, dozens of them, some written before they were a couple. One dated the same night as her birthday stood out. "My time has passed. Your happiness means as much to me as my own. I'll watch over you both." Can you imagine loving someone so deeply, but staying silent, for the sake of friendship, standing beside her while she built a life with someone else? Loving from the shadows. That's a heartbreak most of us will never understand. A quiet kind of pain that never leaves a scar, because it never stops bleeding. Addiction is a monster with 1,000 faces. For some, it's a bottle. For others, it's a roulette wheel, a shopping cart, a pipe. But for one Redditor, it was a needle he hadn't touched in over 13 years. His post is titled, "After 13 years clean and 8 years of marriage, I did heroin 3 weeks ago and almost came close to fully relapsing." The story begins in Manhattan's Lower East Side in the 1990s. He was a teenage addict. By 21, he got clean. He married at 26, had children, built a life, the kind of life most addicts never get to dream of. But peace is fragile. 3 weeks before his post, he went out with a friend for a birthday. In a trendy Brooklyn bar, the drinks flowed. His tolerance was gone. Outside, temptation waited in the form of a street dealer and a few familiar faces. He followed them to an apartment and relapsed. He woke up the next day with 10 missed calls. He lied to his wife, said he got too drunk, passed out, stayed at a friend's house. She believed him, and they even laughed about it together. But inside, he was breaking. For the next 4 days, he was consumed by urges. He left his house 4 separate times to find more heroin. 4 times he turned back, not by strength, but by luck, or even fate. He compares it to cancer. His aunt beat it twice, thought it was gone, until it returned years later and finally killed her. That's what heroin is. It waits. It watches, and when you think you're safe, it shows up again. He never told his wife, and he said he never will. She met him 5 years after he got clean. She never seen that side of him, and he refuses to let her. The urges faded the second his kids walked through the door. He hugged them like a drowning man, finally gasping for air. And then he wrote this. I said heroin is stronger than me. It is absolutely stronger than me. But the reason I won't ever do it again is that it isn't stronger than my family. I would rather just kill myself than put them through that. Reading it, I couldn't help but reflect on my own battles with addiction. I know what it's like to feel powerless, to wake up and try to convince yourself you're not that person anymore. And still, one night, one moment, you can lose everything. Pulling yourself out of that spiral doesn't just take strength. It takes love, luck, and sometimes even a miracle. But it's possible. And if you've ever lived through addiction, or loved someone who has, you know just how true and how terrifying that really is. Have you ever stumbled across something you wish you hadn't? Maybe it was a flirty text your partner sent to someone else, or a hidden family photo tucked deep in a drawer, revealing a truth no one was meant to know. For one Reddit user, what they found was far heavier. A post titled, I found my brother's suicide note on Reddit and didn't tell anyone. It reads, when I was around 14 or 15, I found my older brother's Reddit account because of a Secret Santa package that got sent to our house. Naturally, I got curious and snooped through his history. That's when I saw it. All his recent posts were to r/depression. One post in particular mentioned how our family, including me, was out of town because of one of my sports tournaments. He said that would be the night he finally committed suicide. He wrote about using pills or knives. That post haunts me to this day. I was home alone when I found it, terrified, and I swore then and there to never tell anyone. Not my parents, and not even my brother. To this day, they still don't know. My family has tried to shield me from his mental health struggles, but I already knew. I've carried that knowledge for years. The only person I've ever told is my girlfriend, and now, you. I feel guilty for staying silent, and it's even taken a toll on my own mental health, which isn't in great shape either. But I just want to thank whoever talked my brother down that night. Someone out there, a stranger, saved his life. And he has no idea the impact he's made on mine. And because of that stranger, he got to stick around and keep making that impact. At first, reading this post feels like watching a car crash in slow motion. Your stomach drops, your pulse quickens, but then it hits you. He lived. The brother never went through with it. Someone, some anonymous voice behind a screen, talked him down. And while that brings an overwhelming wave of relief, it also forces a chilling question. What if no one had? What if he never posted? Or what if no one saw it in time? This is the brutal reality of suicide. It's quiet. It's hidden. It often wears the mask of normalcy, And too often, it's dismissed until it's too late. But here's the truth. It's never too late to save yourself. One post, one message, one conversation. That's all it takes to break the spiral, to interrupt the final thought. If you're struggling, reach out to a friend, to a hotline, to anyone. You don't have to carry that weight alone. And if you're on the other side of the screen, reading, listening, scrolling, never underestimate the power you might have in someone else's darkest moment. You might just be the one who pulls them back from the edge without ever realizing it. Because sometimes, all it takes is one person to remind you, you're not alone. And for the last confession, I have to be honest, it's a bit heavy. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. The post is titled, "Our first daughter was redacted at 14, and we raised the baby as our own child. Our first daughter was redacted, and we carried on raising the baby. My grandchild thinks we're her parents, and I can't bring myself to tell her the truth, even now." The story begins with unimaginable trauma. The user's daughter was just 14 when she was sadly redacted. It shattered their world. The parents did everything they could to help, counseling, support, love, but something inside their little girl had been broken, and no amount of love could ever fully reach her again. She became quiet, distant, a shadow of the girl they once knew. Then came the pregnancy. She was just 14 years old. The parents suggested an alternative, but she refused. She chose to carry the baby to term, and in the end, her parents made a decision they believed would protect her. They raised the baby as their own daughter. Her daughter would grow up believing her mother was her sister. The truth buried beneath years of effort to preserve some semblance of a normal life. For a while it worked. Their daughter got to see her child grow up, even if only from the sidelines. But pain that deep doesn't just vanish. Their daughter's mental health began to decline again. Hospital stays, desperate moments, until finally, one day, she was gone. The grief was unbearable at first. They turned their sorrow into anger, blaming the baby, but eventually they realized the truth. The child was innocent. She was also a piece of the daughter, a final living fragment of someone they had loved and tragically lost. And so they poured their hearts into raising her. Private school, vacations, birthday parties, everything a child could want. Everything they wished they had done differently, but no matter how much love they gave, the weight of the lie never lifted. Because every time that girl runs into her parents' arms, calling them mom and dad, it's like a knife twisting in their hearts. They love her deeply, but they know one day the truth may come out, and when it does, they're terrified she won't be able to handle it, that she'll spiral just like her mother did, that they'll lose her too. They've kept this secret from everyone. Not even their own parents know, just the two of them, carrying a truth so heavy it's nearly broken them. This situation is beyond tragic. It's a tangled web of grief, love, guilt, and impossible choices. There is no clean resolution, no clear villain, just broken people trying their best in a world that didn't give them any good options. And it's stories like this that remind us why r/confession is so haunting. Because behind the anonymity of a username lies someone who could be sitting next to you on the bus, a coworker, a neighbor, a parent. These aren't campfire horror stories or internet creepypastas. These are the real monsters: grief, guilt, silence, and secrets too painful to say aloud. And maybe that's the most disturbing thing of all. Sometimes the scariest confessions aren't the ones whispered in the dark. They're the ones that stay buried, carried quietly by people who smile through it every single day.